A major courtroom blunder today in Baltimore. Prosecutors in the Freddie Gray trial calling Officer Edward Nero's fellow officer to testify against him. But that decision, it may have backfired and actually helped the defense. On the record's Griff Jenkins was inside the courtroom today. Griff goes on the record from Baltimore. Griff.
Greta, after months of legal wrangling at Maryland's highest court, for the first time we saw one of these 6 officers testify against another, making it also the first time in Maryland's history that a criminal defendant has been compelled to testify in advance of his own criminal trial against a co-defendant. Officer Garrett Miller, who was on bike patrol the morning of Freddie Gray's arrest, along with Officer Edward Nero, testified today that he alone apprehended and handcuffed Freddie Gray. Now, that is significant because the prosecution alleges that Nero exceeded his legal authority in arresting Gray in the first place and in doing so committed assault. Nero is charged with 4 counts: second-degree assault, reckless endangerment, and 2 counts of misconduct. Officer Miller also went on to testify that when it comes to seatbelting detainees, that it is solely the responsibility of the police wagon operator to make sure that Freddie Gray was seatbelted. And he went on, in regards to this being a new requirement, a recent general order mandate, Miller simply said that it's never come up in roll call in the days leading up to it. Now, the prosecution has rested. Defense continues their arguments tomorrow, and there is speculation that this could be all wrapped up by as early as tomorrow or Wednesday, and it will go to Judge Barry Williams. Remember, this is a bench trial. There is no jury, so things could move very quickly here. Greta?
All right, is there any word on whether it's expected that the defendant, Officer Nero, will take the stand in his own defense?
We simply do not know that, but court watchers told me when I asked that question that they don't expect it because Miller was so strong in Nero's defense, so why put him up there is what they told me. Greta?
Griff, thank you. The on-record legal panel is here. Former prosecutor Katie Fang and former homicide detective and criminal defense attorney Ted Williams. Ted was also inside the courtroom today. So let me go to you, Ted. Ted, if all Officer Nero did was load him into the van, he didn't handcuff him, he didn't seatbelt him, and he didn't drive recklessly, what in the world is he doing there in this trial?
Well, you know, that is the $64 billion question, Greta. Greta, it was high drama in the courtroom today. And you got to wonder, you have to sometime in life be careful what you ask for. The prosecutors decided to compel Officer Miller to come and testify. And Officer Miller may have blown their case to smithereen. Of course, it's up to Judge Barry Williams to make that final decision.
Right. Katie, you would say, first of all, calling the officer, he's got his own trial coming up, but we got that crazy situation where the appellate court in Maryland said that that a police officer could be compelled to testify against another police officer before he even has his own trial. He doesn't have a Fifth Amendment right, in essence. We never got a reasoning for that decision. The court just ordered that, right?
That's right. So we never actually got a written explanation as to why the appeals court decided that Officer Miller and Officer Porter would be forced to testify against, Officer Miller and Officer Porter would be forced to testify against Officer Nero. Interestingly, as well, Ted would have seen this. Officer Porter never testified. After all of that drama, Porter was never called to testify. I don't know if it was an audible call by Marilyn Mosby's office today to not call Porter, because maybe they saw that when Miller testified, it went downhill. Miller is looking at the same exact charges that Nero is facing right now, the 4 misdemeanor counts. Nero got to take a test drive of his case, and he got to see whether or not maybe Barry Williams is going to buy what Nero is selling and what Miller is selling.
I wouldn't put, the way it's portrayed by Griff, I wasn't in the courtroom, and Ted, I wouldn't put Nero on the stand. I'd end it right there with the judge, because loading someone into a van is not in sort of the criminal conduct. He didn't handcuff him, make a bad arrest, and he also didn't put him in the van, and he had no obligation to seatbelt him according to the regulations. So I'd leave it at that. But I tell you one thing, I wouldn't leave it at that with that Court of Appeals in Maryland, because I think what they did was terrible. First of all, I think the ruling was wrong, and then secondly, they don't have the guts to explain it, because I don't know why the cops didn't have a Fifth Amendment privilege when everybody else does. Ted.
Yeah, but, that's why you're a brilliant attorney when you say you wouldn't put Nero on the stand, because clearly I wouldn't after the testimony of Miller. And at the close of the government's case today, the defense moved for a judgment of acquittal, and the judge said that he was looking at the case in the light most favorable to the prosecution, and he kept repeating, at this stage, at this stage. In plain words, Miller did not help the prosecutors in this case. It hurt them badly. It wounded them, Greta, and you can see the expression on the prosecutor's face.
You got 20 seconds, Katie. Bench trial versus jury. I think a bench trial was smart in this instance. I never liked bench trials either.
Bench trials are always kind of interesting because typically the jurors wear the hat of the finders of fact. Judge Barry Williams is wearing both of his hats. He's going to be the finder of fact, determining credibility of the witnesses, and he's also going to apply the law as the judge. It's always a calculated risk because you can't always appeal to the, to sway or influence the judge. But listen, you guys know this.
I got to cut you right off there because I got to go. Ted, Katie, thank you. The computer's going to cut you off otherwise.